for the Queen, which is kind of just says we're recording this in the week of the Jubilee, so it's kind of perfect timing. Please Cakes have some amazing partnerships with Selfridges, Amazon Fresh, have their Please Cakes listed on Ocado. They've launched a book, 60 awesome no-bake cheesecake recipes. I absolutely love what you're doing, Joe, the community you've built, the product you've created. So, mate, I am chuffed to have you on today. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I'm pleased to be here. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, lots to talk about. I think we
Lots to
can
talk about.
both wax lyrical till the cows come home. But, mate, why I revere you, mate, and I've been doing a lot of research into kind of how you've built Please Cakes, and outside looking in, you've got this kind of earth-scorchingly hot fire in your belly, this like kind of thunderous tenacity just to bludgeon your way through like any obstacle and any setback. You've got this attitude to just, jump onto live TV with Holly Willoughby or Dragon's Den, or I think I even read that you did a marathon in 2 weeks. I'm just like, that's mental. Like, I couldn't get my fat ass to do that. I would love to kind of I want to unpack and lift the bonnet on this tenacity that you seem to have, because I think listeners can gain lots of valuable insights from it. And I saw a picture on Instagram which said, happy birthday, Dad. The reason Please Cake started, he made a cheesecake in 2015, which inspired me to start making them in a big kitchen. And I would love to kind of know what your childhood was like growing up and how your old man and your mum shaped this tenacity.
Yeah, so I grew up in Epsom, or Tadworth, Epsom Downs, in a really sort of like loving, stable household. Like my mum and dad showed us a lot of love, and it was very sort of free though, in terms of like we were always encouraged, but we were never forced to do anything. So like we kind of like were allowed to sort of find our own path from a young age. They always tried to put a good head on my sister and myself's shoulder. Like it was always sort of do the right thing. Like this is wrong, this is right, but like not too strict, if you know what I mean. And I always remember, so from a very, very young age, that they worked so hard. Like they were grafters. We had an au pair, I think, and not a nanny, but like an au pair that used to look after us, because my mum used to work nights, my dad used to work very long hours to support the family, to try and provide for my sister and myself. So I think from a young age, I was very aware that like money and like you had to work hard and graft and like to get by in life. It always seemed like a bit of a struggle kind of thing. And so like I don't know if that's where it probably stemmed from, maybe that sort of drive. And I went to school in Tadworth. I enjoyed school. It was something that I enjoyed, but it wasn't. I struggled with like being controlled. Like I think that's why I ended up running my own business and not working for someone, probably. So I went to primary school. I did secondary school, but I left at 16. So I left school at 16. Left education at 16, with no sort of real direction or I didn't know what I wanted to do at that age. But I left because I knew school wasn't for me. Like being in education, being controlled, just wasn't cutting it for me. So I flitted through jobs at that age. Like the first thing I had a job as a youngster at 14. I worked in a pine shop on a Saturday job. I used to get paid about 25 quid a day or something like that.
Sorry, what shop, mate? A pie shop?
Pine shop, like a furniture shop.
Oh right.
Right, yeah. So in Reigate, actually, only like 5 minutes down from where we are at the kitchen now. Every Saturday, 25 quid a day. I used to help do deliveries, move furniture around, bits and bobs around the shop. When I left school at 16 though, I fell into, like, I was quite active, so I was a squash coach. I used to play a lot of squash, so sport was quite a big thing for me when I was a youngster. I used to play for Surrey, for county. That sort of progressed into me being a coach. I was coaching at the local schools around the area. I then tried to do like a personal training course, and because of that I had to be at a leisure centre. So to fund that, I was a lifeguard at David Lloyd in Epsom. So I was a lifeguard for a period of time. boring. Like that was boring. It's like warm. It's drowsy. You're like, it's a bit of a boring job. It's like you want to be an active person. You want to be a PT. You want to be doing exercise, and yeah, lifeguards not that eventful. Not a lot of people drown that often. Not a lot of people
Yeah.
drown. It's quite boring. It's quite uneventful. But still, I did that. Got a year down the line, and then sort of like wanted to do something else. Went into like started getting a little bit older, started going out a little bit more, started getting onto the like going out, seeing and socializing, and then like sort of helping run like nights out and like events and stuff like that. Moved to New Zealand when I was like 19, again like doing the event side of things. I told this story like a couple of days ago about like my journey through work, and like it's just looking back it's just mad. But yeah, went to New Zealand, did like 6 months out there or something doing events, came back, had to earn money, became a landscape gardener. So I was doing that for a year and kind of loved it because it was quite active outdoors. It was just kind of not my passion, but it was just something that was sort of paying the bills a little bit. And then I had this next crazy idea that I wanted to become a stuntman. So I started doing the stunt register. So I was doing like, you have to do 6 different disciplines to get onto the stunt register, the UK stunt register. And so it's like falling, which is high diving or trampolining, and there's swimming, scuba diving, or whatever it was, fighting. There's like 6 different disciplines, and I was training, so you have to become an expert in each of these fields to get on the register, and I had to fund it, so I was like trying to work as well at the same time. That's when I fell into painting and decorating. But it was just it was an incredible sort of experience because you have to get like 60 days in front of camera. So I worked on like the last 3 Harry Potter films. I did like Warhorse and X-Men and all these sort of. It was a really really good experience, quite condensed in time. So probably about a year and a half or so, year and a half, 2 years. But that's when I fell into the painting and decorating because I had to fund this training. I wasn't sponsored or anything. So I fell into painting and decorating where I started working for Brendan, who was like an old friend who had his own painting company. And like I've always wanted to achieve something, always grafting. So I've never not grafted. And through that period, like I was working for him, I was grafting, and then eventually we set up our own company called Palmer, which is our 2 surnames, Parry and Moruzzi, like put together. And it started taking off. It was doing really well. We were doing luxury apartment blocks. We were doing footballers' houses. We were doing all sorts of stuff, and it was growing. We had like 10 or 15 guys on the books, but I wasn't passionate about it. You know, like it just wasn't. It wasn't what I wanted to do long term. Although we were making money, but it just wasn't something that I could see myself doing long term. So I always loved food, and that's where I think the food side of things probably came from my parents. My dad especially, he's Italian, so growing up around that Italian food, good quality food, like communal, like that's what you do like at the weekends or for an event or birthday. It's all quite a big event kind of thing around food, all sort of focused around food. So I think that's where my passion for food, like I'm a foodie, like I love food, any sort of food, like that's me, you know. But there, yeah, that's where my love of food started from, and then that stemmed obviously into eventually making a cheesecake one day.
Mate, it's like I love that story, and I think I mean I badger on about this all the time, but I interviewed the founder of Box Park, Roger Wade.
Mm-hmm.
He was a super interesting guy, and he said what you need to do is connect the dots of your life. Life is all about connecting the dots, and I think for anyone listening, especially if you're slightly younger, I feel like you come out of university or whatever and you feel like you've got to have your whole life figured out, and I think there's all this pressure on, you see it on Instagram, all this pressure on people. It's like, what I love about you, if I connect the dots here, it's, you've got this graft from your parents working super hard, you've got, grafting from a very, very young age, whether it's with the pine shop or the painting and decorating. You've then got the stuntman, so I think almost if you combine painting and decorating, graft, and the wow factor of stuntman, you get please cakes. And I think you're a prime example of someone who's connected their dots, like taken each step in front of the other and connected the dots. And I think it's so interesting to see how those very different things align into one thing and amalgamate into the please cakes. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I do. I think it's something that's really hard to teach as well. I think it's kind of inbuilt as well. You know, people talk about like how do you become an entrepreneur or how do you do this and that. I think it is like you say, it's life experience. It's you're led by passion, you're led by purpose. These sort of things that are sort of inherent in you based on your experiences. You know, so it's I've been had a bit of an odd sort of career in terms of how I've got to this point, and I still look back now. I'm like. I look back and I get that sort of stereotypical imposter syndrome right now. Like I'm running a food company. I've never done a cake. I've never done a food course. Like I've done my health and safety obviously since I started this company, but I've never done a cake decorating course. I've never been to catering college. I've never studied food or anything like that. And here I am, like a few years later, running a company that's like about to scale up. We've definitely grown a brand, a food brand, which is kind of mad to me, you know. So although I don't really get a chance to like really step back and just actually look at what we've done so far, I'm kind of really still in the mix of it. But I just love what I do, you know. I'm just passionate. I love what I do. I think that's where it comes from, you know. Like you have to be passionate. You have to look like what you do. Like when I get up on a Monday morning, it's not work for me. It's like I love getting up on a Monday morning. Like I look forward to Monday again. I get bored at the weekend. I've been working for the last 60 days straight, like since the start of April, not a day off. But like if I'm not doing anything on a weekend, on a Sunday, and I'm like, all right, what should I do? Like I need to be doing something. I'm on social media or I'm on emails, or like I can't switch off. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely for the love of what I do.
Oh, mate, I'm exactly the same. I mean, I basically pretty much every Sunday is the day I do all the podcast stuff because I'm just so passionate about it. And then when I'm going to work for Money Life, it's like it's a complete hoot. Like obviously it's graft, it's hard, it's arduous at times, but genuinely I'm working with great people, selling a banging product, and it's fun. Mate, there's so much I kind of want to go into here. So you said your old man and your mum were like grafters. What were they doing specifically?
So my mum did various jobs to try and support the family. So she was obviously a stay-at-home mum initially, but she used to work in the casino. So she was a croupier,
Right.
like in the London casinos, in one called Palm Beach, actually, in Mayfair and Berkeley Square. And my dad was initially in the music business. So he was in a band. Like he's a keyboard player, piano player. And he was like plugging away at that for many years and in the industry for quite a long time. And I remember every New Year's Eve, which my birthday is the next day on the 1st of January, he would be out playing. Like that was the night he'd be out playing. And then because again, like just finances, he had to pay and support for a family. He became a builder with his brother. And I just remember him. He always used to work long hours, always tired, always had like, you know, like bashed up hands and like just knackered all the time. And that's what he did for a long time. He did that for a long time, as long as I can remember, basically.
That's so interesting because as I said at the beginning, I'm trying to unpack where this tenacity comes from. I think your old man and your mum are leaving like interesting clues, and obviously I think I butchered your name at the beginning, mate. Sorry, is it?
I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, mate, I'm so sorry. I was like, you had one job, Dan. You had one job.
Yeah, I'm so used to it. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd name to pronounce, but I get it all the time. Like I get so many variations of that name, but it's Moruzzi.
Moruzzi.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a Moruzzi, but it is Moruzzi. Yeah.
Moruzzi, yeah, it's a slick surname, mate. I'll give you that. And it's but I want to jump into Italian culture, and you may not have been asked this before, but how does your old man and his Italian kind of background, that kind of family piece, how has he taught you any lessons about building or family lessons that you implement with the Please Cake team or the Please Cake community?
I think it's around family. It's around looking after your family. Like it's all about that tightness in your family, like looking out for one another, supporting one another. Like there's a lot of love. Like it's a very sort of loving relationship. And I think that's just that is something that I was brought up around, kind of thing, on both sides actually, from my mum's side and my dad's side. It's just a lot of love, a lot of support. I think and just sort of maybe from my parents a bit of like understanding and empathy and like not passion, but like like that those sort of maybe elements I've kind of brought into the police cakes where I'm not. I try. I'm very good at kind of like sitting in the middle and having quite good self awareness around myself and others, and just trying to like understand other people's perspective as well. You know, rather than I'm not one of those sort of like bosses that I'm not like a demanding. So I never shout. It's kind of like I like communicating and kind of talking through a problem, or do you know what I mean, like that. I don't know if that's installed from my family or that sort of side of things, but I like we're very sort of the way we work here is very. It's like a friendship group, you know, rather than there's no hierarchy, there's no even though we have varied job roles and different job roles and everyone's on different pays and all that. It's very like this is we're all kind of one level here. This is we're a team here. It's very team orientated, which is probably relates to that family side of things. And we all kind of like pitch in, and I suppose that's startup though as well, isn't it? Like startup culture is like everyone's got to kind of pitch in and get on with it kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of like that, you know. Like there's no job that I wouldn't do in this business. Like I'm mopping floors some days, I'm doing deliveries some days. Like, do you know what I mean? It's that's kind of like how my approach to it. Not only because it's my company, but because I think that installs a good culture throughout, you know.
Yeah, completely. And I think it comes easy to you from evidently, but I think a lot of people listening to this, or in fact I just know a lot of people listening to this are founders or work in businesses where they don't have that family element, where they don't have that empathy, because, you know, it's fundamentally the stakes are high as for challenger brands.
Yeah. And
sometimes I'd love to kind of understand how you have that empathy in that conversation. Is there an example where, I don't know, maybe something's gone wrong and how you navigated that? Because I think that could be really useful for listeners.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific one right now, but in terms like culture's been like a slightly challenging for me as well. I think like everyone's different, people are different. It's been just sort of focusing on business at the moment in terms of like culture. I found it probably one of the most challenging things over the last few years, or people like just. People are so important to a startup. They're like it's like your family. Like you've got to have the right people around you for it to be a success. And if you don't, if you have one weak link, it can be really detrimental to the company and the long term future of the brand. You know, so I have struggled with that in terms of like just like when you're a startup, you don't have like the luxury of like hiring necessarily the best talent in the industry at that time, because you're a startup and you don't have tons of money, or you don't have the luxury of time. Like you haven't got the luxury to go through like a lengthy recruitment process to like really find out if certain people align with your company values, which I found slightly challenging, because at the start you're like, yeah, just come on, let's like, yeah, you're hired kind of thing. You're hired, and I think that process is something that's quite interesting to sort of look back on as a founder and think like, how could I have done that differently right from the start? And I think it's kind of like hindsight kind of thing. You know, you can't really sort of predict it, or I didn't know back then. But in terms of like being empathetic and like an example of, if there like, there's always going to be problems in business, right? Like there's never not going to be a problem or an obstacle or something to overcome. And I think the bet is just the approach, it's mindset and approach. I think if someone's got an issue with something that's happened external of the company or internally in the company, it's all about communication for me. It's just like, let's sit down, let's talk through it, let's work out how do we get to a solution kind of thing. I think that's always been my approach. It's never been lose my head and like not try and understand. It's always tried to have that mindset and that approach of like, all right, there's a problem, how can we overcome it? Because ultimately every problem is solvable.
It's so true. I think for people listening, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? Because if you create the family scenario and with the values as the foundation of that, it becomes much easier to have very empathetic conversations where people are open with you. But equally, you can't have that without getting the values in place. But I think it's really interesting how you've done that, even with hiring so fast when you didn't have the finance, or you didn't have, as you said, the time to get the big guns on board.
I listened to a podcast with Ben Francis.
Gymshark, right?
Gymshark, yeah, Gymshark.
Yeah.
About like so like his team right at the start were like a certain team, and obviously, and sometimes that team is not going to be the team for life. You know, sometimes they're only going to get you to a certain level, and that's not a bad thing. That's like you shouldn't look at that as a bad thing. And sometimes the team will change naturally over time. But it just sort of made me realize that like even if you build a core team at the start, like they're not necessarily going to be there forever, kind of thing. So it's just again having that like that mindset of like understanding like how a business journey sort of evolves. If you, especially if you're a scaling company as well, like when you go from a small startup company that's like an artisan, small circle, small reach, very sort of like communal, to becoming a brand and like a national kind of thing, it becomes so different. Like the procedures and paperwork and all sorts of things that have to be in place to allow it to get to that level become much less communal and family like feeling. Do you know what I mean? Like it becomes, it does start. I start noticing things that become a little bit more corporate and a little bit detached from that very communal. Although we really always focus on internally, like having that communal feel and like that vibe internally, but. It's just I suppose I'm right in the mix of it at the moment, like that transitional period. So it's quite interesting.
It's so interesting because it's basically it's the constant theme with every guest I've interviewed is at some point a brand, as you say, the core team aren't going to be the team that get you. They may get you from A to B, but they may not get you from B to C to D to E, whatever. So, and I think the hardest thing is as you cross those chasms, keeping that feel. And I think it's all about distilling your values into three core or four core things. I think Lucky Saint have got some really good ones. The alcohol-free brand. It's the devil in the detail. They're escaping me now, but they've got some really, really strong values. What are some of the Please Cake values, if you don't mind me asking?
Passion. So I think passion is something that we're really sort of like focused on. I think if you're not passionate about something, then there's going to be a limited amount of time that you'll give up to be part of it. If you know what I mean. Like I think if you're not passionate about something, that's the first thing, and then we're led by quality. Quality is we're product. We're product. We're not only product. We're service in terms of like value through our social media, tips, recipes, tutorials and things like that. So quality of what we're putting out, not only product but content wise and service wise, I think that's a big thing. It's all about bringing value to our community. If you're not bringing value, that's something that's massive for us. Value, then people are not going to engage with you. They're not going to buy into you as a brand. If I was to hand you a mobile phone for free, it holds value. It's worth X amount of money. You're going to take it if it's free because it holds value. It's the same with content. It's the same with product. If it holds value, people are going to take it. People are going to engage with it, kind of thing. So that's really something that's important with us. Another one is disruption, and that's kind of led by us thinking outside the box and being innovative and putting out products that aren't on the shelves and like trying to create new experiences through our products like freeze cakes. That's a world's first. No one's doing that at the moment. It's taken like a ton of energy and passion and trials and setbacks to get it to the product it is today. So freeze cakes was an idea back in March 2017. So that was 3 months after I launched Please Cakes, and it was like I've got pictures of it and I share it quite a lot. It's like it looks like a little turd, but it's like the concept was frozen cheesecake, like a choc ice, basically. Because I found that it kind of like bit quite well. It tasted quite nice when you ate it, but it got shelved because the cake started taking off. So. And then we sort of revisited it, and it was a lot of development and passion. So that's something we're really focused on as well, is just trying to drive innovation in the category. And I think there's so much opportunity for us, like we've seen with brands like Little Moons who've utilised social media, number one, to go viral, to build sales, and number two, to drive innovation in the category in retail. So I think for us, like that disruption piece, if we can disrupt, but disruption is only disruptive if the consumer adopts it, I suppose. So we're hoping everyone likes freeze cakes when it goes into retail next year. And then the fourth one, which we're kind of working on, so is sustainability. No, like something that I'm really passionate about, but it's for us as a company, like because this whole thing happened accidentally. Like I didn't have a business plan. Like I wasn't meant to be sitting here today. Was just like kind of like make the cakes, like go to the supermarket, get supplies from like the supermarkets, and like not actually like research our supply chain or where everything's coming from. And that's something that we're going to work towards as a company. Is something that I'm like long term goal as a company as a whole. We want to get to the point where we're a very sustainable sort of company that actually doesn't have a negative impact on the globe, kind of thing, you know. So there are four main sort of values: passion, quality, disruptiveness, and sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, and also what I really liked what you said there, Joe, is you said work towards, and I think that's a really interesting. Or what I'm learning from you is it's constantly an evolution with you guys. It's like, you know, you start with the please cakes, then the freeze cakes. Your ability to pivot and work towards things, and I think so many listeners put so much pressure on themselves. Like, we need to do a bloody B Corp. We need to be doing X, Y, and Z. It's like you can take pleasure in working towards it, and I think that's a really salient piece of wisdom for listeners, because it doesn't have to get everything all right straight from the off.
No.
You didn't know how to like build the family piece to begin with, but over time working towards it, you've got there. What I want to go to now, mate, is because obviously you mentioned Brendan. Mm-hmm. And in doing research, I think he was running the painting and decorating company with you. When I watched the thing on ITV with Holly and Holly Willoughby, he was on there with you. Was he the co-founder to begin with, or like what happened with that?
So what happened basically? So like launch of Please Cakes, we haven't really spoken about that just yet, but like it was December 2016, and I'd made these cakes. Previously, my dad made a cake, and then I made a cheesecake, and I progressed over the next year, making them for friends and family, like birthdays, unpaid. Didn't get paid for these cakes. I couldn't even get the base off the tin, so I had to get a new tin every time I made a cake, which was a nightmare. Not a great business model. But I got to a point where I thought, look, I can make a bit of extra money on the side of my painting company. Like that was the only intention. I didn't have, like, this is the thing. Like, this is accidental. Like I wasn't planning to grow a business, or like I wasn't like passionate about cheesecakes right from like when I was a kid. Like it was quite a recent thing, but I was making these cheesecakes. I'd bring these samples into the building site for the boys to try. And December 2016, I was like, I'm going to take action. I'm going to do something about it. Okay, I'm going to set up an Instagram account, because I saw the potential and the utility in social media. I knew I could use it as a tool to grow the business. So I set this up. I set this Instagram up like on January the 3rd, whatever it was. And then one of my mates, who's got quite a big following on social media, gave it a shout out, completely unplanned, on January the 6th. So like 3 days later, I'd posted like 6 photos. And it went viral overnight. So it was like, we had like 15,000 followers in 24 hours, whatever it was. And this was back when Instagram was organic and the reach was great. And you could actually reach people and engage with like a good amount of people. But went viral overnight. No website set up, no email account set up or anything like that. And I've met Brendan, who was my business partner in the painting company, and Bill's in Epsom. The next morning I was like, let's act on this, join in kind of thing. So he came on board, and it was that like first year whirlwind. Like so many things happened in that first year, and he helped me for that whole first year. So he was on board. We shut down the painting company. Unfortunately, we should have sold it or kept it going somehow. But it was kind of like full on for that first year. Just me and him and a few other people. So Sam came on early doors, and I got a couple of chefs by the end of that year. But after that first year, he then went back to painting. So he did that first year with me. We were still like very early doors. There wasn't the finance there to really support us both. So he went back to painting, and then we're still really good friends. Like we're really close friends still. So he's one of my really good friends. Yeah.
And there's so much in that, because I think when you said your mate with loads of followers, that was Joe Wicks, right? It's
yeah.
I think I saw was I just watched the documentary with Joe Wicks about his childhood, which I thought was fascinating. Was that Brendan the same? Brendan, that's the same Brendan, right?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. The same Brendan. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing, because I want to explore kind of your relationship with Joe as well, because I think that'd be fascinating. And he loves Manny Life. He always puts on his Instagram story. So yeah, massive fan of that. But I'd love to kind of know how you felt going into this Please Cakes venture with two of you, so you can almost share the burden, to suddenly going solo, because I think that must have been a really hard transition. Like, what was that like, and how did you navigate that?
It was. I think for me, it was brutal. It was such a intense first year. There were so many highs, so many lows. Like, we were working, we were getting into the kitchen at like 1:30 in the morning sometimes, getting home at like 10 o'clock at night, and it was just brutal. Like, there was like it was like a tug of war, like a mental tug of war. So you know, when you got like this like incredible, like, oh, like you get a book deal, or you're on TV with Phil and Holly, and then you're like, oh, we can't afford to pay like this supplier or whatever it was, and it was just a really intense year. And then when that happened, it was kind of, yeah, it was like, oh, like, shit, is this gonna actually work? Is this gonna, and like, it was just a brutal time, you know, like, it's just a real doubtful time. It made me doubt myself. It made me doubt the company. But I'd had people around me, you know. I think that was really important at the time. I had my family, obviously, who were really supportive. I had Sam, who's still here today. So she approached us 2 weeks in to do some admin work, and now she's a director, shareholder, or director of operations. And she's been with me for the last 5 years, you know, so I had that support with her there on board. But it was hard, you know, like, even like that year, that transitioning from that 2017 to 2018, we were struggling for money. Like, it was like any startup, cash flow is a killer, isn't it? Like, a standard. We were doing all the manufacturing in house, so nothing was outsourced. Everything was made in house, out of tiny little kitchens. So we were working off an army base in Yule. Like, it's like a little domestic kitchen, like, ridiculous, trying to service Selfridges out of there as well. And I was then trying to like go through rounds of investment. I was reaching out and attempted to do Crowdcube, and that year was like all about trying to raise money and trying to expand, because we could stay small, but again my ambition started kicking. I was like, nah, I want to give this a go. I want to keep trying to push it and keep trying to progress it and grow it and stuff like that. And the demand was there, so it was tough, but there were so many things going on that I didn't really have time to sort of dwell on it, you know, and sit back and be like, this is going to be tough. I just sort of cracked on, like, focused, let's keep going. It was just like day by day by day, take it step by step. And that was it, you know, like, I had this mentality of good days, bad days. And I think it's something that I sort of like, it's a philosophy I kind of live by now, you know, like, there's always going to be bad days, there's always going to be good days, but if all the good days were good, you wouldn't appreciate them, kind of thing, you know. So I welcome and expect the bad days and like try and embrace them a little bit, and then when the good days come, you're like, sweet, kind of like you appreciate them a little bit more. So yeah, it's definitely that good days, bad days mentality for me. Like, that's got me through.
I love that. And I think, again, back to Lucky Saint, Luke said entrepreneurship, and I'm going to butcher the exact phrase of this, but he said entrepreneurship is getting comfortable with the feeling that everything is coming together but falling apart at the same time. And that's, you know, it's, you know, good day, bad day. And I think for listeners, what you're saying there, take it just day by day, step by step, because, you know, sometimes I get overwhelmed with all sorts. I'm like, there's just way too much to do, and I just have to almost just like, right, day by day, and that compounds and builds momentum. Before you know it, if you look back over 6 months, you're like, shit, look what I've achieved. And I think that's really a strong piece of wisdom there.
It builds your character as well. You know, you start becoming very sort of adapt to like hard situations. Like, you're like, if something bad happens here, it doesn't really faze me anymore. Like, I'm kind of ready for anything, in terms of like anything serious, anything that's potentially damaging, like, for the company, personally, like, mentally, physically. Like, I'm kind of ready for it, you know. Like, I've done so much of it in the last few years. It doesn't faze me, and it actually prepares me for it. Essentially, I'm prepared for it. I'm ready for it. So whenever it does come, I'm like, sweet, let's get through it. I know there's going to be an end to it. Pain is temporary, and you just kind of get on with it.
I love that, and I did a podcast the other week all about Stoic philosophy, which is essentially what you're saying. I did it with Ed from the Curators, and it's a lot of it is about building resilience, and resilience only comes from hardship. And it's like, you can't have confidence without going through fear. You can't have the two are kind of inextricably intertwined. And I think for anyone listening to this, it's like, embrace the bad days. It's the obstacle is the way. It's one of my favorite. I mean, I'd literally get that tattooed on me if I could. I think the obstacle is the way forward. I suppose on that then, what has been the sort of seemingly most insurmountable obstacle on your journey that actually paved the way forward? That could be, I don't know, it could be the pivot into freeze cakes. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to kind of explore.
Yeah, I think like as mentioned, like I didn't have a plan. Like I never had a plan. I never had like a strategy. I haven't had any experience in the food industry, so it wasn't like I set up the company. I was like, okay, I need to focus on a product that's scalable, that is easily manufactured, that is easy to distribute. All these sort of things. That wasn't. It was like I had made a big cake with tons of stuff on top. It was very Instagrammable. It got the engagement, but I can't scale that. Like that ain't scalable. Like I'm not getting that across the country without that being smashed into about 100 million pieces. You know what I mean? So there is one, and that's the thing. Like I started learning again. It's this evolution of like understanding. Like, all right, I do want to grow a global brand, but how am I going to do that with the product? I can't do it with the big cakes because they get smashed up. They'll never turn up to the destination on time or in one piece. So I started looking at products. We're focused down the small cheesecakes, which are really easily distributed, easily manufactured. The truffles, again, easily manufactured. The freeze cakes in a tub, you can't smash it up, kind of thing. So the strategy started to sort of come to light like 3 years in, and it's obviously been an odd 5 years because we've had that 18 months, 2 years of COVID, which was obviously a weird period of time for many people. But yeah, there was no strategy. So I had to learn strategy, learn scalability, like learn where I wanted to take the company and how to get it to that point. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's just sort of very recently sort of come to light on how to do that now. And I think now we've got that, it's now just sort of finalising these points of manufacturing. So can I manufacture it in-house? Is that the best route to go down? Probably not. And I've realised that. So there was 2 avenues I could go down. I could either set up a big manufacturing plant and have to raise a ton of money for that. And then that'd be very high risk because you can lose contracts and things can go wrong. There's many components, you've got to manage many more staff, etc. Or go down that MPD route, develop the product and focus on brand and that culture and social media and things like that. So that's the sort of route we've gone down. We are working now to outsource all our production for these scalable products, and then focus on brand and distribution basically. So the strategy's changed, and that's been realised only because I've gone through that journey. But the thing is, yeah, if I'd gone straight away with the freeze cake tub at the start, that wouldn't have built as much community, I don't think. So we've done this D2C, like direct to consumer model at the start, these big elaborate cakes, very Instagrammable, utilise social media, and that's what's built our community essentially. But now we're transitioning into now bringing the brand to the masses, which changes the product slightly, but it doesn't change the quality and the innovation and things like that. So it's just a constantly evolving company.
I love that, and I think it's Camilla from Rude Health came on here, and she said, in the early days, it's serendipity over strategy. Just like you're never going to have the idea that you start with is never the idea that it's going to make you famous. Maybe it's slightly different the way around because the please cakes were so bloody gorgeous on the eye. But Moji started with cold pressed juice. Shots made them famous. I think Ollie Hiscox from Ollie Olives. Like they started booting off when they did pretzel thins, and the chocolate pretzel thins are otherworldly. They're so banging.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about obviously Rude Health's the biggest example. They were a granola brand and then did all these dairy oat milks and they booted off. So I think for anyone listening, it's just as you so rightly say, Joe, is just take each day by day and this believe in serendipity, and eventually the strategy will come. I think that's really, really interesting. And on I suppose what was the kind of the darkest day, and how did you pull through that?
I've gone through this to the like there's I'm like kind of bookend by two like dark periods of time. One was right at the start, like when it was like just like a mad struggle. We just trying to like self fund, like bootstrap it. Like there was we had to have money. Like we're a physical, tangible product. Okay, manufacturing in house. You need money to grow. You need money to scale. We're not a tech. We're not online. So we needed money, and so like that first year, that cash flow. Just like the physical, it was like the first year was physical, like it was just brutal, doing everything all the time. And then COVID kind of hit. So like we got to that point when we raised money, like so I think we raised about 300k up until that point, just through like family, friends, sort of seed investment. And then COVID hit, and then there was this like period, this like period of time where we were really busy because like all our delivery platforms were really busy. It was an odd time, but we never shut down, and we just got busier and busier. Our home kits were really busy. We were utilising our supply chain to help the vulnerable, all those sort of things. So like it was a really sort of weird 2 years, and everything kind of stood still. We were already speaking to like retailers pre-COVID, and that just like went on hold. Anything to scale went on hold. All the events went on hold. Everything like that. So this like void in between, and then we came out the other side, and the economy's changed. And inflation has come in, and the cost of living crisis has come in, and various like people are going back out now. So the sales went down in terms of like direct to consumer, but our stockists have gone up, and we've expanded into various wholesale B2B, which is our strategy. But that takes time. So this time right now, we're going through like a period of time. We're trying to raise money. It's tight again. It's a chain. Like so, like for instance, cream cheese used to be £2 a kilo. It's now £4.80 a kilo. Like, but now because of the cost of living crisis, the retailers want to push it down to support that. But our supply chain's going up, and this is going down. So our margins are like getting squeezed. Those sort of things. The energy is going up. Like so, I think, and this is very blanket across most businesses, especially startups. It's a very challenging time right now. So once we're just trying to work towards that retail launch next year, outsource manufacturing, all that sort of thing, which is going to take it's going to be the next sort of 8 to 12 months. So right now it's tough. Like I'm struggling, and like recruitment is tough. So because obviously with COVID, hospitality shut down. Okay, so like everyone in hospitality went and found other jobs in different sectors, and now they haven't come back. So there's a lack of jobs as well. So like I'm finding it very challenging to recruit. I'm very hands-on again in terms of like actually manufacturing downstairs in the kitchen. It's very challenging. I've got no staff, like kitchen stuff, like hospitality staff. So yeah, it's tough. Like honestly, it's a very tough time at the moment for us. But there's so many good things going on. Like our pipeline is crazy. We've got some incredible things in the pipeline, which keeps me going essentially. So yeah, there's so many dark times. Like,
and I think that's so reassuring for listeners as well, because everyone's going through, as you say, it's maybe not the darkest day on the journey, but let's talk about now, because it's a morbidly, morose situation out there. Like it's prices going up, everything's. I mean, the price of a pint now is like. I think I paid like £7 for bloody Guinness the other day. I was like, what the fuck? It's just nuts.
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad.
And I suppose, what are some of the voices in your head? Because I listened to a podcast. I think you said self-doubt is always good. How do you turn self-doubt into a superpower?
I've just got such self-belief in the product and what we're trying to do, and the brand and the community. Right. We've had feedback from consumer, we've had feedback from investors, we've had feedback from buyers, and there's a lack, especially for like the free set, there's a lack of negative comments, and I'm excited by it. Like I can just see the opportunity, and I suppose because I'm involved in it so much, and I can see the product, and I know what it is and how long it's taken to develop and stuff like that. It's just self-belief, I think it's that resilience, I suppose, again coming into play. Like it's just not thinking too far ahead, believing in yourself, having good self-awareness, and just understanding where you're at, your position, and just just trying to keep that drive alive. You know, I'm more driven than ever, I think, because I'm getting closer and closer and closer. And to be fair, there's no real like end goal. It's not like I'm trying to like grow a brand to exit or anything like that. It's not like that's not in the forefront of my thoughts. You know, I'm focused on bringing a quality, indulgent, fun product that's innovative to the market. You know, that's my focus. Like, and that's what I'm really the passion and purpose is there, and that's what keeps me going, I suppose. You know, it's not about it. To be fair, it's a really challenging time at the moment, but I'm trying not to focus on that as such, and just trying to just sort of compartmentalize it and just making sure that we're focused on the right things.
Mate, I love that, and I think it's, you know, everyone listening to this is going through some form of struggle, and I think your philosophy of, you know, day by day, bit by bit, builds resilience. If you've got a strong enough why, you can bosh through any kind of how to do it, which is your testament to that. No, that's amazing. And so, yeah, where I wanted to go to now is Joe Wicks, actually. Can you like remember the first day you met him, and what was your childhood growing up with him like?
We weren't super young when we met, actually. Like it was a circle of friends. So like I was friends with various people. One of my good friends, Dave Keedle, his older brother, was really good friends with Nicky Wicks and Joe. And I actually met him probably like he was a lifeguard down at David Lloyd as well. Well, I was a lifeguard.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like there was some crossover there. And Brendan's a really good friend with him. Brendan went to school with him at Blenheim. And it was just like a circle of friends, and we used to hang out. We used to go out quite a lot, and it kind of stemmed from there. Nicky, his brother's a great guy as well, and they're such an incredible team. Him and Joe, Nicky and Joe. Like Nicky's like behind the scenes, what he's done, and for Joe as well. Like it's incredible. Like they're such a great team together. And obviously, as you saw in their documentary, they've been through a really challenging life, but. I must have been, yeah, so it was after secondary school, so I must have been 17, 18 when I kind of started meeting Joe and his brother. And yeah, like I say, it just kind of stemmed from there. But I always look at Joe as like he's the way he's able to connect with people, like it's unmatched, you know. It's so natural, it's so authentic, and like I think to learn of the way he's built community is incredible, and I try and take anything I can from him. Is so valuable, you know. It's just I don't know how he's done it. He's not, again, like not someone who's been taught or done a degree in like social media or building a community, but it's just that natural ability to do so, you know. And I think that's it's shown in his incredible career.
Yeah, completely. And I think the more entrepreneurs I interview, I think there is no business school. I mean, it's hilarious. I did a degree in entrepreneurship, which is a load of bollocks because you can't really teach it. I mean, I've got some professor on the stage being like, "This is how you should do a business." I'm like, "Mate, go and do your own business." So, and I think what I'm learning from you, mate, is that you can't teach it. It's to learn by doing. Maybe this is slightly tangential, but I'd love to kind of maybe bake like a mentorship cheesecake of what Joe's taught you for kind of listeners to gorge through their ears. So if you could pick either, you know, 3 almost one sentence pieces of wisdom to whack in there. So for example, Camilla from Rude Health would say serendipity over strategy, for example. Yours could be day by day. Is there any 3 ingredients that you think Joe's taught you that could really benefit listeners as well?
I think a really important one is authenticity.
Right.
You know, I think just being yourself. I think that's a really good way, especially if you're on social media. You know, I think like social media's changed massively over like the last 5 years. It started with this Instagram sort of phase where everything was perfect, like everything's airbrushed and like it was your perfect life, and it's completely changed. Not only the platforms have changed, but the mindset in terms of like consumer habits, and it's definitely sort of gone in the complete opposite direction, and it's all about authenticity and relatability. and like showing your work and telling your story. And like I always say, like for someone trying to start social media, if they're a small business, they're very sort of nervous about getting on social media and speaking in front of a camera. I'm like, the best thing you could do is get on a camera and mess up and stumble and stutter and be yourself, because that's actually human, that's actually relatable. And that's what I always try and say that to many small businesses that are worried about doing that. And it becomes really authentic, you know, you actually buy into that person more. And I've always thought just like the importance of documenting your story, like especially in business, there's so many things that aren't shared. Like I probably don't share enough of the hardship, but I try and be as transparent as possible, because you look at someone on Instagram or a business on Instagram, you think they're doing incredibly well because they want you to think they are, but in fact behind the scenes they're not. And I feel like there's not enough of like, we're actually really fucking struggling at the moment, and it's really tough at the moment, and inflation's killing us at the moment, and this and that. There's not enough of that, I don't think, but I think it's definitely swayed more that way. And I think that's something that Joe's been great at, you know, about sharing his state of mind when he's feeling down, when he's feeling low, his mental health, all sorts of things like that. And I think that's how he's built community, is authenticity. And I think anyone listening to take that sort of that key trait is really key, especially if you're exposing yourself on social media. Be authentic. Don't try and be someone else. Be yourself.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think there's so many founders here who will be kind of riddled with nerves about even doing an Instagram story, which obviously probably comes super naturally to you. And so I think what you've said there about actually, you know, fucking up makes you more relatable. So just go for it. Are there any other maybe two pieces of, other than authenticity and relatability, that he's taught you about either building a brand or a community?
In terms of like social media, I think like another thing is like good content will be found, always be found. Like again, like just going back to that value piece, like I think regardless of like algorithm or platform or changes in social media, I always believe that good content will be found. So like if it's bringing value to your audience, people are going to engage with it. Like it will be found. If it, like, even if you're a small brand at the start or a small page or whatever it is, I think it's just good content will always be found. And that's something that I think he says quite a lot as well, especially in this sort of ever-changing landscape of social media. I think that's another key point.
And sorry,
else?
just on that, mate. So
Yeah.
does he, or do you guys like look at the content that's performing well and then double down on that, or is it more just kind of let's just post and see what works? Is there is it serendipitous, or is there a strategy behind this? Is what I'm trying to get at.
There's not so much of a strategy. There's probably could be a better strategy, but we're kind of spread thin in terms of the team. I've got like I've got like there's very few of us to do everything at the moment. So in terms of like actually having like a watertight strategy, like a long-term social media strategy, there's not, because it changes so regularly. There's so many new features and the platforms are changing, so it's really hard to sort of like put in place a strategy that's long-term. So I think it like I'm aware that like if we put out say a post that's a selly post, like buy our products, it's not going to get like a ton of engagement because it's a sell, you know, like people don't like being sold to. If I put out a recipe or something that holds value, that people can relate to or connect with, or that I'm honest about and transparent about, I know it will get engagement. So for instance, we got a load of packaging printed with I don't know why I thought of this. There was a side to the packaging that said, I put the balance board on there, okay, because our cakes are indulgent, right? But I did like various exercises, like do this exercise for this long, or do this many reps of this exercise, and I posted it on Instagram. So I had 25,000 of these boxes or 30,000 boxes printed, put it out on social media. And like I started getting slated, like really slated, like that's a trigger warning for eating disorders. And I was like, fuck, that wasn't what I was thinking. It was more like have a balanced lifestyle. Like that's like kind of like be active. Like that's my philosophy in it. Like have a balanced lifestyle. You have a dessert now and again. Be active. Eat good food. Like, do you know what I mean? That was my sort of my thinking behind it. But I didn't realize it could be a trigger for eating disorders. So instead of like just going with it, I actually sort of like engaged with the audience and was like, look, I really didn't understand this, and I was really transparent with what was going on, and it got that engagement because I was being transparent, and it actually brought the community into what I was doing, which was really key. And we got some stickers printed, and we had to like sticker every single like box. But it just highlights the fact that like just being honest, transparent, and with your audience is an opportunity to bring value as well. You know, like you're bringing value, you're bringing them into your world, kind of thing. So I could have hid behind it. I could have carried on and released those boxes. And probably a lot of bigger brands, if they had done that, they might have gone ahead with it. But it was all about thinking about my community as well at that time, you know.
Yeah, I think there's always an opportunity. There's always an opportunity in every crisis, and I think you're someone who epitomises that. And I remember the other day, I like cursory going through Instagram. I saw someone left like a Google review, and you were like owning it. You're like, "Why are you giving us this feedback?" Like we're
Oh
for. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, "Fair play." Like, because a lot of people just be like, "Oh, the neggy comments," like, you know, bin them off. Like, let's not worry about it. But I thought that was a very brave thing to do.
I did think about not doing it, but I thought, do you know what? Yeah, like I think, especially this, and it was in support of other small businesses. Yeah, it was like this person. Obviously, we're not going to talk like there's going to be no names involved, but like this person was a previous customer, like bought product of Hospital, like there was and loved it. So like, why? I just didn't it baffled me, and I think in support of other small businesses that this should be highlighted. Like, if you are going to leave a Google review, a public Google review, like get in contact with the brand or product and like support them. That if you're going to leave a Google review, that's only going to be detrimental. There's going to be no resolution to that. It's a public review that doesn't get removed. That's not going to support a small business. Like, and for me, it just highlighted how challenging it can be for a small business. Like that was like one bad review out of all of them, and like I was like, what? Like I didn't get it, and I'm very supportive of free speech, and like everyone's got an opinion. Not everyone's going to like our product. Fine, like that's absolutely fine. But it was just the way it was handled that I didn't get, and I thought I needed to highlight that to support other small businesses.
And it's a tremendous piece of advice for listeners, because it's so you can turn it into an opportunity. So a bit like the balance board thing, suddenly it got loads of engagement. Like every crisis is an opportunity, and I think, yeah, I absolutely love that. I want to talk now and jump into the kind of the horrific swimming pool of fear, because I think you're someone who just has this ability to just walk headfirst through fear, and it's something, you know, every single person who's into this will have a buyers meeting where they are absolutely cacking themselves. They may have to go and do a public speak. They may have to speak in front of 10 people. Fear is something you've got to turn into your friend if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. You said you went on This Morning with Holly Willoughby and Phil Schofield in 2017.
That was scary.
Live TV is really scary. What did it feel like on the morning you woke up when you were having breakfast? Like, what were the voices in your head? Because I think this will be really relatable to listeners.
It's an odd feeling, you know, like it's kind of like overwhelming. Like there's nothing, you don't think about anything else at that stage. You're like just focused on like that moment in time. I can't really describe it. Like I wish I was really natural in front of camera. Like naturally, I'm an introvert. Like I'm not a public speaker. When I do like quite a lot of like panels or whatever it is, as I'm sure you do as well. Like right at the start, is that like 3, 2, 1, and we're live kind of thing. It's that bit that gets me. Like 5 minutes after that, I'm all right. But and you know what it is? I've only got better at it over time because of repetition. Like that's the only way you get better at anything, isn't it? Like just repetition, practice. And like I say, I'm not a naturally extrovert person. Like I don't want to be in front of the camera all the time. I'm not looking to do anything like that. That was never the purpose of doing this, you know. So I still get nervous, you know, like if it's a big event or like I'm in front of quite a lot of people, it's overwhelming, but I think it's because I care, because I'm passionate about it and messing up. Maybe I care what people think a little bit too much still, but I think everyone does to a certain point. But live TV is just different gravy. Like Dragon's Den was scary because, like, obviously it's one take and you walk in and all that, and but it's not live TV. Like if you mess up on live TV, you mess up
You
on live
mess up,
TV.
yeah.
So like, the first that we've been on this morning a couple of times. The first time was like in a group of people, like 6 months into starting Please Cake. So like, loads going. I didn't know what I was doing, but again, you just kind of like, I don't know how you do it, but you just start talking, and it's an odd experience, but you kind of feel like it's kind of like you feel elated after. It's kind of like a really sort of uplifting feeling once you've done it. But like the second time we were on this morning was with Phil and Holly, like just me and Brendan for like a slot of like 8 minutes or something like that. Like that's a long time on live
I
TV.
bet.
Like it's a long time, and they're so professional. That's the thing. Like because they work so quick, you don't realise like they're at this camera, and then they know there's this camera, and Phil, yeah, in his ear, he's got you can normally hear a director. In his ear, he's got everyone on set in his ear. So runners, lighting, everyone. So he's got like 100 people in his ear, whatever it is, and he can hear everything that's going on. They're just so professional. They're so quick, so slick. And you just feel out of your depth basically. Like it's quite overwhelming. Like this, it's just an overwhelming experience. And I think it's just one of those things. The more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. To be fair, I am more comfortable with being in front of a camera because of we do a lot of stuff on social media. But I don't think I'll ever get used to it. I don't think I'll ever get used to it.
No, and that's really reassuring for, I suppose, myself and for listeners. I remember the first like 10 podcasts I did. I interviewed Charlie Bigham and I was like vaping my head off. I was so nervous. I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I literally cannot do this. I was doing the introduction. I was like, I've butchered the introduction. This is going to be a car crash. I can't do this. And then, as you say, day by day, rep by rep, you build that resilience or that ability just to keep bludgeoning your way through things. So what were you saying to yourself to be like, okay, I've got this, like I know what I'm doing, or was it just like I've fucking got no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going?
Oh yeah, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I had kind of like an opening, not like script, but like what I was going to say in my head. So like
Right.
I was gonna, so I knew they were going to ask me. Like there were some like basic questions, so I was just like similar to Dragon's Den. Like I had my pitch, and I just like was repeating it in my head. Like, this is, I can't remember what I said, but do you know what I mean? Like I had like a set sort of piece in my head that I was just repeating, and I always kind of like take myself off to like a quiet space and just go over it and over and over it. Like with Dragon's Den, I was like just like on it, like facing a wall, just like pitching, like just like in my head, just, do you know what I mean? So, and trying to keep calm, like. I don't know. It's a really odd experience. Some people love it. Like this is what people live for. People want to be on TV. They want to be in the limelight. They want to be on camera. They want to do live TV and all that. But it's not natural to me, But I will always do it. I'll always try and do it because I know the positive effects it can have to spread a positive message or to help build the company or to support other companies. Like so. It's something that I'll always do if I have the opportunity.
And also, I think if you just think really hard like live TV, obviously when you go into a buyer's meeting, it's still super scary, but you've put yourself in that,
I feel less. I feel less scary about that because I think naivety like allows me to be fearless in those things because I'm like, I ain't got a clue what I'm doing. I'm here by accident. Like there's no real sort of pressure for me. Like if you like the product, you do. If you don't, like and it's kind of a different mindset for me on that one. Like it's that naivety maybe.
It's completely. And also, I think lots of people listening to this think they've got to go to a supermarket with everything figured out, or any retailer. And actually, I interviewed a buyer from the Co-op, Rebecca Oliver Mooney, and she was saying, like, yeah, if you're a big boy like Coca-Cola or PepsiCo or Mondelez, of course, you need to be coming to us with the data. You need to be coming to us with the full shebang, right? Like, because you've got the budget to do that. Anyone who's a challenger brand just starting out, you can go to the meeting and just, as you say, it's back to this thing you were saying, mate, about authenticity. Just say, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help us? And it creates this, and this is what Rebecca was saying, it's about creating a partnership. and seeing it as we're potentially in this together if you like our freeze cakes. Do you see? So I think that's really what you said there about, look, people get themselves in such a tiv about going into buyers meetings. Actually, just embrace what your naivety, and
Yeah,
it's a superpower.
exactly that. I've had a bit of an odd experience with like retailers because like I don't know how it's kind of, I don't know if it's because of lockdown or like just like social media maybe, but um, they've all kind of like approached us through social media because they've seen social media, which is like it's just really interesting to see like how powerful social media can be. But yeah, like you say, it's I kind of look at it like just like M&S came to us, and I had a meeting with M&S about freeze cakes, and they loved the product, and then they came back and said, we want to white label it. Like, we don't want your brand, we just want to white label your product, really. And I went back, I was like, no, like in the meeting, no, not happening. Like, and it was like I like kind of just trying to really like having that self belief again, believing in my product and my brand, and even to M&S, I'm like, nah, you're not having it. Like, I'm not letting you have the product without our brand on it, kind of thing. So again, just probably going back to that naivety and just self belief a little bit. But yeah,
No, but also, mate, I don't think I've actually discussed this on this podcast yet, and it's a very important topic because, like, knowing when to say no is also a superpower because we got into a situation right at the beginning when we were super naive. We basically went into a retailer. The commercial agreement was a complete, nightmare. We couldn't really do anything, couldn't promote, couldn't drive the rate of sale. The margin was horrendous, and you didn't know. And we said yes because we got blinded by the lights of the big listing. And I think, some M&S come knocking on your door. A lot of people may think, oh, God, that's M&S. Like, that's banging. If it's white label, look at the volumes, look at the numbers
yeah,
coming in there. And I think it takes nerve and going back to this piece about your core values of who you are as the brand you want to build. That must have been so hard to say no, or was it hard? Was it like, actually, no, that's not branded, I'm not doing that? Like,
no, it's been an odd experience with us with retailers because like again, like I'm not an expert in this field. Like I haven't really got a clue what we're doing. This is the interesting thing. I don't know what's good or bad, but like we've had them all of them pretty much approach us now. Like all the top five or whatever, top 5 or 6, whatever, and they've all offered like full estate, and they all want exclusivity, but we've said no, but they'll still take the product, and it's like I don't know, is that good or bad or like for me, I've kind of learned it's been quite a few opportunities to do some own label stuff actually, not only for the main retailers but for the discounters as well, and we've done a bit of development for the discounters on some white label product. It never got listed, but it just highlighted to me the fact that to do an own label, to get for the discounters especially, the product has to deteriorate, the quality of the product, the supply chain you have to really start using some not bad, well, yeah, bad ingredients basically, some like packet mix, some like ready-made stuff, like, and I was like, this ain't for us because this doesn't correlate to our core values of quality and sustainability and stuff like that. So we never went ahead with doing that sort of thing. So I think for us, again, just like I had this opportunity of going down the manufacturing route or the brand MPD route, and that's where we're sticking. We're sticking with our brand and focusing on our brand rather than own label stuff, And I think actually, like, one bit of advice I got from Jonathan Warburton actually, when I went to meet him up in London. Like, it was one of the last meetings we had, and he was like, "Don't do own label. Do not do own label. It will eat into your brand, and you'll be reliant on own label, and it'll be 80% of your revenue." And I took that. That was after I had that realization of we're going to focus on brand, but it just sort of cemented the fact that, look, focus on your brand. Everything's going to be white labeled at some point. Like, if it's a good product, you're going to get a copycat at some point, but you need to really believe in the brand and what the brand brings to the market. So that's what I'm focused on.
Completely, and that's a mistake we made. Like, I remember I was trying to get us into like gourmet burger kitchen, so I was looking at the volumes, and I was basically going into white label stuff. I was like, again, I was so naive 4 years ago. And if it's not branded on the menu, it's kind of pointless because there's no awareness. Yeah. And and what you said there is, everyone piles in now. Everyone's now got a deep roast. Excuse me, a deep roasted peanut butter, and the only thing you can do once people copy your product is brand. Like the brand is everything, and it goes back to this, your values, your authenticity, because people can copy a product, but they can't copy Joe. Like, do you know what I mean? It's very difficult to do that. Or they can't copy Joe Wicks. There's loads of fitness people out there. They can't copy Joe Wicks. So I think that's a really salient piece of wisdom for listeners is one, knowing how to say no, and then two, through authenticity and relatability. Sorry, I need another coffee. That's how you kind of create that brand edge, and that's very hard for competition to copy.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of where a few more questions, mate, because I'm conscious of your time, and so the first one, this is like I'm a massive foodie as well, mate, because obviously I've been looking at your cheesecakes, right, and it's like setting my inner glutton on fire. And I know we tried to set some up so I could come and pick some up, but it couldn't happen. But what is like your favourite cheesecake that you've made?
Favorite cheesecake?
And why? Is it like something? Maybe the one you've sent to a customer, or just the one you personally love?
There's so many. So many. In terms of product, though, like I personally love what we've done with freeze cakes. In terms of, it's just a bit of a different eating experience, We've got like 6 or 7 variations, 6 or 7 flavors now, and they're all different, and I think they're great. I think they're very different. But let's talk about cheesecake in terms of like my favorite cheesecake. We do the little baked ones now. We do a little chocolate orange brownie. Like it's quite simple. Everything's made in house. We make the brownie in house. Like we'll make all our sauces in house, all our ganaches, all our compotes, all our caramels in house. But yeah, the chocolate orange brownie, probably maybe slightly wintry, like maybe seasonal. I don't know, but for me, it's great. Chocolate orangey, perfect kind of thing. That's my sort of like. I think that's my favourite at the moment. But truffles are great as well.
Oh mate,
you got to try.
I'm so hungry. Like I'm just.
I'll send you a little selection box in it. I'll send you some truffles, some minis, and some freeze cakes as well. But I'd love to hear what you think.
I've eaten like overnight oats today. It's like very.
Have I? I've had those.
Yeah, I'm just like, mate,
my girlfriend. She loves, mate. She's obsessed with overnight oats. Like, I put it on the story this morning. Like, she gets really excited about overnight oats, so she makes them every night. She's pregnant as well, and like, I don't know if it's maybe a pregnant thing, but like, yeah, she loves them. So
you're obviously skilled at this, mate. You've segued perfectly onto my next thing. No, mate, I
love your vocabulary, by the way. Like, your vocabulary is so much better than mine. You've got really good, much more interesting words than I have.
No, I'm not. Honestly, I don't know where
you're
coming from.
So you get segued. I like that.
Yeah, but what you said about the overnight oats, mate, is like I had them this morning. The reason I do it is I kind of fuck it because I just put like a chocolate bar in there because I've seen. Like, I don't literally put a chocolate bar in there, but like I'll do all the sort of the healthy bits like the raspberries, all that shit, and then I like need a bit of chocolate coming through there just to give it a bit of va-va-voom. But what this is again like probably nothing to do with the podcast. I'm just following my own curiosity here. But like, what are your top 3 chocolate bars? Like
top 3 chocolate bars
that you put on the product on the cheesecakes.
So we don't try and do much branded stuff now, like, unless we're doing like a collaboration. So we've done loads of collaborations with loads of brands, or like Lint and Gillian, and who else we've done collaborations with? I can't remember. But in terms of like chocolate bars at the moment, I love a bit of Tony's Chocolonely.
Oh yes,
it's a great chocolate bar. I think it's like the caramel. All of them are really good, to be fair. Like
the
milk
caramel is
banging.
Unbelievable, yeah.
It's like wedgy, isn't it? It's like a good wedgy. Like it's so Moorish. So yeah, probably Tony's Chocolonely at the moment. That's my. But like in terms of like maybe like nostalgic like Chocky Bees, what would I go for? It's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I like a bit of dark chocolate. I'm a bit of a dark chocolate fiend. So
really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like dark
interesting.
chocolate, bit of dark chocolate and a glass of red. Ooh,
Yeah. That's a lovely little marriage,
yeah,
that.
beautiful.
um,
No, yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I'm always this the thing. Like when you work at a cheesecake factory, there's always something to nibble on. There's always a bit of temptation floating about. So it's a nightmare. It's an absolute
I'd
nightmare.
be
There's always a
absolutely
chocolate bar.
I'd be absolutely screwed, mate, if I was in your.
Honestly.
I'd be. I wouldn't be at any meetings. I'd just be out stuffing my face with bloody
Oh
cheesecake.
no.
Um, and so I want to end with. I saw on your Instagram that you're having a kid, which is epic. Massive
Mm,
congrats, mate. I want to end on
thank you.
that. But the final kind of theme I want to explore is how you're balancing focusing on freeze cakes versus please cakes, because obviously the please cakes are what are like eye gougingly gorgeous, as we said, like they're lovely to look at, versus the freeze cakes as well. They are still nice to look at. Like, how are you balancing your focus between the two? Because I think listeners will at some point have to focus on the core versus kind of the ancillary products in their range.
Mm.
How do you do that?
For us, like obviously now we're sort of trying to enter into retail, so it's all about making a bit of noise. You know, when we enter retail, we need to make a bit of noise if we want to stick by our values and be disruptive. And we're not going to do that with a normal cheesecake because there are some cheesecakes on the shelf, and I think we could do well in chilled, but it's just higher risk and probably less disruptive. So as part of our strategy, freeze cakes is the focus. You know, freeze cakes is the scalable product. We have got a manufacturer who's teed up, ready to go to scale the product. A lot of work has been done in that, in terms of like the product development to actually get it to a product that can run through a production line, which we've never done before. We pot every single pot by hand, which is a bloody nightmare. Not scalable. So yeah, we've got to that point, and we believe that is something that is going to excite people in this sector, in the frozen dessert. You know, like frozen dessert, because it's potted in an ice cream tub initially. That's what our first format, and it's not ice cream. People think it's going to sit in frozen dessert, you know, and frozen desserts is either seasonal, so like you're going to get that 25% of sales at Christmas time or whatnot, or it's an older buyer, you know, the consumer's slightly older, so we feel like we're actually going to be entering a sector that we could really sort of shake up a little bit, you know. So I think we couldn't do that with just the cheesecake. Our focus is the freeze cake. Really trying to establish that brand in retail, scaling that up across the UK, and then internationally. I think there's some incredible opportunity over in the US with the cheesecake. I think they're a nation that love cheesecake, and I think with products like the freeze cakes, we could see some real traction over there as well. So that's our focus. We are still looking at the cheesecake to scale as well. But what I've learned as an entrepreneur as well is you're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do it all at once. And just
Yeah, I
just
like that,
like,
mate.
do you know what I mean? Like you do that, you're like, I've got so many concepts. Like I've got packaging for a concept that has never been released before, Please Shakes, that is like completely like never been seen before. But I've already got the prototype packaging here, like, and people are like, no, slow down. Let's get one thing right first, and like get allow freeze cakes to establish itself. Start seeing that the fruits of that labour, then start introducing these other concepts as well. You know, but and that's what I've learned, I suppose, is just to slow down, be a little bit patient, focus on less things, but get them right. So yeah, freeze cakes first, then whatever happens after that. There's multiple formats of freeze cakes as well, so it's not just in a tub. It's going to come in various formats, but again, drip feeding that through the years, and then see where it goes. You know, who knows? Like there's so many concepts that we've got, and that just highlights that we're just not a one trick pony. You know, like we're so focused on doing exciting, innovative things as a brand. We're a cheesecake company, like, but we're not just a cheesecake company, if that makes sense.
I love that, and I'm the worst at that, mate. I'm pretty sure I've got ADD of some form. Like, I will literally jump around. Like, okay, that's sick. I need to be doing that, and then
Yeah.
bosh onto the next thing. And before I know it, I've gone around in circles about a million times. But one of the values we have at Money Life is do less better. So, a lot of people say to us, are you going to do almond butter? Are you going to do, God knows, some weird concoction of shite and a bit like mixed up? But we're just like, let's just focus on peanut butter. And I think that's another great piece of wisdom. And I think, obviously, you're going through the Cedars fundraising now. What is, if you hit the target, what's the investment going in? Is it going into the manufacturing or?
No, so this investment is going to go into the support of us into retail, not the manufacturing, but the hires behind it. So the internal, like the hires, marketing, continued development of the product, and that will get us to a point where we launch, basically, which we're looking at a launch of early 2023. So in that sort of spring window, sort of drop in, hopefully. That's where we're aiming towards. It kind of all got put on hold. We were meant to be launching just this March gone, but because of COVID, these setbacks on machinery and computer chips put us back a year. So again, that was probably actually we didn't talk about that, but that was a major blow for us. Like that was a major blow because we were like last year, like October time, we were launching in March in retail, and that could have seen some like exponential growth and like got us to a new like place in terms of the like where we're at and position wise of the company, but like that was a major blow for us. We were like, shit, we've got another 13-14 months of doing what we're doing now, like grafting, still grafting everything in house. That was a blow. That was like, shit, man, that was tough. Like we have to get through this now, like another whole year, and a year is a long time. Like that's a long time just to be like, oh, I've got to just crack on for another year now. So yeah, that was a major thing. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. Where was I at?
No. So it's just so that setback was.
Yeah, that was a major one.
And what happened again? Sorry, so it's like.
So we were working with a manufacturer, who are still going to be the manufacturer now, but because the challenge we had with freeze cakes was it's an ice cream format in a tub, but it's a dessert. So you go to an ice cream manufacturer. They can pot it for you, but they can't make it. You go to a dessert manufacturer, they can make it, but they can't pot it for you. So it's really hard to manufacture. It's not, you can't put it through an ice cream production line. So they have to do a bespoke line. They have to put in a bespoke line for us. Bespoke machinery, bespoke nozzles, all sorts of stuff. And because of that, the delay on that machinery was over a year.
I see what you mean. So yeah, you're like literally having to crawl through, it's like crawling through bloody glass, isn't it? That
basically, yeah. Especially when you've been speaking to the like Waitrose put in an order for March.
God.
And we were like, no, we got to push that back a year. Push that order back a year.
That is so long.
So yeah, those sort of things were challenging, but yeah, can't remember that.
Mate, so final question, but I kind of want to wrap this up because I believe every conversation I have, something new or new train of thought bubbles to the surface. And I can't remember who told me, but someone said to me, being a startup is like being a baby, right? And it's like you just each day, and this goes back to your day by day thing, day by day, rep by rep, whether it's pushing through fear, dealing with adversity, setbacks. Is you like a baby, you take each day as it comes, and you get slightly more accustomed to things. Like in terms of your strategy, initially, if we're talking about a startup getting off the ground and a baby learning to walk, there's so many failures, there's so many setbacks, and eventually they get walking and they get momentum. So that could be like you guys starting with please cakes and then going into freeze cakes. It's that's like you getting off the ground and you're now beginning to move forward. And I think lots of people listening to this will want to be straight away a teenager within 2 years, which is not going to fucking happen. And what I love about you is taking a lot of graft, a lot of day by days, and I think this is really something that stuck with me. And now you're getting that momentum that you so deserve. And it's, as you said, it's not easy. You're still going through the kind of the trough of sorrow, if you said right now. But on that baby piece, obviously you're having a kid. And this is a question I ask all guests who've got kids or having kids, is after everything you've been through so far, is what would be one piece of advice you're going to give? Do you know if it's a boy or a girl?
Yes, a little girl, yeah.
Amazing. So when's your daughter due?
4th of July, so I've got like 5 weeks.
Fuck, that's pretty quick,
I
mate.
know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, I'm scared.
What's one piece of advice you'd pass on to your daughter?
I think just stay true to yourself. You know, be like find be your own person. Don't be that sheep. Don't get swayed, and just follow your dreams in it. Like follow your passion. Follow your passion. It's something that I've done and I've kind of stuck by, and I think it's going to work out well. You know, I still love what I do. I know it's hard sometimes. I know it's challenging, but that is startup culture. That is business. But I still love what I do. Like I'm able to do things like this. Like I'm out and about. I'm speaking to people. I'm inspiring other people. I'm motivating other people, and it's so satisfying. With the social media, you give a little business a shout out, and their sales go up, and like you're like that's what this is about, you know. So but that's only because I followed my passion. That's all it's down to, and took action, you know. So I feel like I'm probably going to have a similar parenting technique to my parents, you know. I didn't go to university, I didn't go to school, but I don't think that defines you as a person, or your career, or who you become, you know. So it's all about like I'll be there to support her and guide her, but it's all about finding her own path, you know, and following her passion.
Joe, that was epic, mate, and thank you so much, and good luck with the
Thanks for having
race,
me.
and good luck with everything, mate.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Right, I'm just gonna hit pause on that, mate. Just